Hello, good people. Welcome back to another blessed message with Lady Nye, also known as Minister. Hey, 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 hey. Ow, 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 ow. Ow. Welcome back. Okay, so this message is detailed. Um, and I will say this: some messages are harder than others to deliver because sometimes it hits home, okay? Sometimes it can resonate with you, especially when God is revealing these things in real time. Like He's actually showing what happened, what transpired. He's giving you confirmations, visualizations, just evidence of the fact that this is true. So I also will say that when you receive your sight, your spiritual sight, and you're awakened, you cannot go back. Okay, it's just really difficult to go back. There's some things that you would rather not see, you would rather unsee, and however, you cannot go back. And that can be a gift, but it also can appear as a burden. Although it's not, it can feel like a burden. And I'm going to use this as an example. So when God lays a word on your heart and He says, bring forth the message, it's like immediacy. You have to bring forth the message. It's like a burning sensation in your body where you have to get the word out, because this is the commandment over your life. This is what God is commissioning you to do. So again, I will reemphasize the fact that prophets of the Lord or ministers sometimes have to deliver messages that they don't feel good about themselves. So yeah, we have to be aware of that, because I think some people might feel as though when it comes to certain types of messages that, they just want to one up or get back at me or something like that, but it's not that at all. And this particular message is, I had a lot of emotional release associated with it. And I told you before, and for those who don't know, I have become an empath, meaning I feel the emotions, the experiences of others. So it's really rare that I shed a tear for myself. It's often associated with the experiences of others, because when God gives me the word and He's giving me the visualization or the confirmation, He's saying this is what actually happened. Okay, I used the example before where I experienced that electric shock. Okay, and again, I'm experiencing it for myself, but that is just minor, like a sample of what these other people experience. And this is what God is showing me. And sometimes it's just really hard to, I guess, accept the fact, like, this is real, there's no going back. And also, probably a while ago, okay, I was told that you wouldn't be so gung-ho about associating with certain people if you knew what they really were about, if you knew how much they despised you, how much they hated on you in the background. That came from someone, and I was like, but that was just, again, God will give you the signs, He'll give you the warnings, He'll give you this as caution so that you're prepared for what He's going to release to you. Because what happens is, if God gives you all the words at once, you're going to experience a sensory overload. You're going to be like overly stimulated. It can be really emotional, and that's not what God wants for you. So He will give it to you in segments. And once the puzzle starts to get pieced together, you start to realize, like, wow, this is really deep. Yeah. So what God showed me is that someone needed my attention for their plan to work. So again, as a prophet of the Lord, for those who don't know, when you accept your assignment and you start walking in your purpose, you will become a target of Satan. You will become someone that Satan wants to dispose of, because he knows you're telling the truth, but he doesn't want other people to know the truth. That's the thing. So while you have awakened, he would prefer if other people stay asleep. But the more you speak, the more people are going to become more drawn and attentive to you. Remember, I said that someone is very magnetic. People don't even know why they're attracted to you, but it's God. And it's not attraction in a romantic or sexual manner. It's just that they want to hear what you have to say. They're interested in hearing your perspective. That's what God showed me. It's certain people, and I would say for myself, God uh, will give me a message or something along those lines, or I'll receive some type of news. And then I'm interested in hearing from certain people. What's your take on this? But it's certain people that God has placed in my vicinity because He knows they're going to share light on a situation. They're going to tell the truth. And the same is happening for someone. People are starting to be attentive. They want to tune in to hear what you have to say. They could hear from a whole bunch of people, but they're drawn to you. God has given you that magnet. He made you magnetized, magnetic, so that you're reeling in the right people. This is important for someone right now. I can't make this stuff up. So while you may not reach the masses, you're going to reach the people that are assigned to you, that God wants you to touch, in terms of touching them spiritually, waking them up, opening their eyes to a certain situation or multiple situations. So again, in order for Satan's plan against my life to work, I had to be paying attention. But again, God ensured that wouldn't happen. He ensured that my attention would be focused on the people that He was introducing me to spiritually. This could be done in a lot of different facets, but God is God, and I know what I'm talking about. And nothing's impossible with God. So He will give you certain people to serve, again, as your angels, your guides, your spirit guides. There are a lot of different vocabulary we could use for that, but He will put people in your vicinity that are meant to share certain information with you, show you certain things, enlighten you on certain topics. And He has done that. They needed me to care about what they had going on. And a lot of times this is like nonsense, okay? I'm telling you, so Satan, if he had his way, he will have you watching certain things that God hasn't ordained. He'll have you listening to certain things. Again, this is why we have to keep ourselves clean and holy. Meaning that we're going to be attentive to those things that God has assigned to us. Now, it's not always going to be religious. Sometimes it's going to be worldly. Sometimes it's going to look carnal on the surface. But there's messages intertwined within that particular avenue, or that facet. So they needed me to be in certain places at certain times. That's another thing that you got to pay attention. So you have to know what place is meant for you to be, where you're meant to be. Where is God sending you? Okay? Even Jesus, when he was a little boy, he knew where God was sending him. So when they went to look for him, he said, I'm about my Father's business. He was serious about that, even as a young one. But right now, you have to know where you're being sent, where you're being planted. Because some people, they want you over here. And some people are going to be distracted because it looks more attractive. Oh, you want me at the Grammys? I ain't never been to the Grammys. I'm going to go over there. But God ain't sending you over there. And then in some people's cases, God is sending you there. So you have to be able to decipher where you're meant to be. Some people just look at the glitz and glamour and they assume, oh, this is elevation. God might send you to a school, okay? That's the glitz and glamour that he wants for your life. So it's just dependent. But I know what God was showing me personally is that they wanted me in certain places so that I would miss what God had for me. This is important. So I wouldn't pick up on the signs that God was sending me. They needed access to my emotions. And it's so wonderful how God works. It is not by accident that professionally I have been in mental health. Otherwise, Satan could have had me. If I wasn't in tune with my emotions, aware of the devices of Satan, and if I hadn't studied on being a counselor, a therapist, all these things, I probably could have went the other way. Because Satan plays off your emotional responses to things. So if he can get you irate, angry, upset, and all these things, then he can hold on to you. Okay? He can get you out of character. and compromising positions. God didn't want that for me. They needed me to cooperate, but God wouldn't allow it. So just like with anything else I've said before, spirits are attached to people. So Satan is working through people. So they are being sent so that you can cooperate, you can go along with them, you can agree with them, and God wouldn't allow it over my life. Why? Because I gave my life over to Christ and I was prayerful, I was reading my scripture, I was obedient, meaning that I started this station and I continued even when I wasn't getting a voluminous response. I don't know if I made that word up. But if I wasn't getting a large response or I didn't have a huge following, I continued on with the assignment. And therefore, God blocked every attempt to distract me. But if I had ignored his signs and went a different route and said, you know what, I'm just going to focus on here because this is not making any movement. I'm not getting paid for this. I could have said that, but I stayed the course. So again, this is to help someone else. This is to encourage you to know that this is how God will bless you when you're attentive. So because I've been in the Lord's good graces, he keeps showing me people's motives and intentions for my life. Someone created circumstances and conditions for me to feel depressed, sad, lonely, unhappy, but God didn't allow any of that. If I told you the whole story, you wouldn't believe me anyway. That's why, again, I share my personal examples and bits and pieces. I sprinkle it here and there because otherwise, nobody would believe the whole story. But certain situations that I've gone through, I know it was designed by Satan. It was a tactic to get me off of the course. Just like with Job. When Job was tested, the whole point was to make him exhausted, to wear him out, to make him desperate, to make him in a place where he would give up on God. But God didn't allow that to happen. For someone, they also want to humiliate you because they wanted to humiliate me. But when you know too much, when you're a seer, that's another word that is used. But I'm cautionary about certain words. I told you before because seer might tilter towards that medium psychic, language. That's why I tend to use prophet or minister. But seer essentially means that you see things in the spiritual realm. So when you know too much, they can't really play off your emotions. They can't embarrass you. They can't, guilt trip you, shame you. All those tactics that work on people who are not emotionally intelligent or emotionally aware or spiritually aware, because that's the important piece. When you're not spiritually aware, you're not cognizant of the devices of Satan. So they'll try anything. You get so low, what they say, people be willing to do anything. And what I found is that people are willing to do anything. And it doesn't take much. Some people haven't even gone low in terms of their, situations on earth. They just choose to operate according to the will of Satan. God is revealing to me and establishing in my life that they won't have that power over me. He has given me a control over my emotions and the ability to see, to understand what's really going on. So I don't respond, out of character. I don't respond, what is the word, hazardly. Yeah, that's why I slow to speak, slow to anger. Yeah, so I won't make the mistake of getting irate or angry prematurely. And God revealed that a bunch of witches have been operating in the vicinity. And their broomsticks are cracked and they are mad, okay? And I have to tell someone, this is happening in groups, families, and on teams. So some people are a part of teams. Like, it could be sports teams. It could be something along those lines. You're a part of something. And even within this group, in the midst of people you never thought possibly or possible that they would have ill will towards you or ill intentions. But the whole point was to get you within this circle, this group, so that they can ultimately disrupt you, corrupt you, dismantle what God was doing in your life. That's the whole point. And the title of this message comes from what I'm gonna say, what my mother used to tell me. I can show you better than I can tell you. So we're headed back to the beginning for some of us. Now it's not back to your beginning. That's the thing. It's back to someone else's beginning. Because specifically God was showing me what happened. How did we get to this place? This is where it all began. This is how it started. This is what he's been revealing to me. Okay? And ooh, it's so deep. It's so much associated with this particular message, and I feel it in my spirit. But it, some people, when you're being attacked or targeted, you might feel like you're the only one. You're the first. And remember, I told you before, God was showing me this is why we keep the messages general, because it's happened before. Okay, it's happened before, and honestly, even when you're going through it, someone else is also experiencing the same thing. That's the thing. But again, God is showing. So he said, I can show you better than I can tell you. Mama used to say that because, as a parent, you tell a kid over and over, and they don't listen. They want to do their own thing, be hard-headed. And then some parents might say, well, I'm going to let you experience it for yourself so you can see. And then by that time, it's like, oh, dang, my mother told me this, or my father told me this, or whoever. And that's basically what God was showing me. I was in a situation. But before we get there, I got some other stuff. What do I want to? So I want to share the scripture. So usually we have like a scripture or two, and we look at, the verses. But God was showing me something to confirm basically what I just said. Now, he had shown me that, and I mentioned it before, that in a family, I'm going to use the word family. In a family, there was a division. There was a divide, a separation. Now, if you're in a family and it is a new generation, the new generation doesn't know what transpired before, right? They don't know what happened years prior. They only come into when they're born. And by this time, a lot of times what happens is the people who went through some stuff, they might have had situations occur, they're older now. Okay, so these new generations encounter people when they're older. And especially when things aren't spoken outright about, they're not aware of what happened. So God was showing me, we know Isaac and Ishmael. We know that story with Abraham and Sarah and Hagar. Hagar was the maidservant of Sarah. Sarah couldn't have the baby. So Abraham had the baby with Hagar, which was Ishmael. Ishmael became unsightly to Sarah because it was just a reminder of the fact that Abraham had a son with someone else before she could even deliver a baby. But deeper than that, what God was showing me, that this divide is generational and is actually displayed through their occupations. That's what God was showing me. The occupation was that evidence. I know it's a spiritual matter, but I'm just going to read a few things. Genesis 26, verse 12. Isaac planted crops in that land, and the same year reaped 100-fold, because the Lord blessed him. The man became rich, and his wealth continued to grow until he became very wealthy. He had so many flocks and herds and servants that the Philistines envied him. Okay, so he was a farmer, a shepherd, essentially. He was very productive and fruitful, so things would grow and blossom in his presence. Now let's look at Genesis 21, verse 20. This is in reference to Ishmael. It says, God was with the boy as he grew up. He lived in the desert and became an archer. While he was living in the desert of Paran, his mother got a wife for him from Egypt. Now, The contrast there is that he lived in the desert where things are dry, barren. Whereas Isaac was in an environment where things were fruitful, blossoming, growing. That's why he was able to maintain hundreds or many, say many flocks and herds. Isaac planted crops in that land. In the same year, reaped 100-fold. Okay? Even his occupation, when we talk about Ishmael, he was an archer, meaning that he bow and arrow. That means he killed things. So it was like a contrast. They were the opposite of each other. Wow. Somebody. I never received scripture like this in church. I'm telling you what I know. God showed me this. Never received scripture like this in church. This is the result of God's spiritual insight. This is why I can urge people to seek it for yourself. Somebody who's been in church, in the pews forever. And it's the first time I actually looked at this from this perspective. They were the complete opposites in how they went about their daily business. And it alludes to the continuous struggle between good and evil, righteous and bad. It speaks to that. So again, in the family, this divide has already existed before this new generation came about, but they weren't aware of it. Somebody gonna catch it. They weren't aware. The divide was embedded in the family. You don't believe me? Let's also look at Genesis 4. Let's start at verse 2. Later, she gave birth to his brother Abel. Now, we're talking about Eve. Eve gave birth to Cain, then she had Abel. Now, Abel kept flocks, and Cain worked the soil. In the course of time, Cain brought some of the fruits of the soil as an offering to the Lord. And Abel also brought an offering, fat portions from some of the firstborn of his flock. The Lord looked with favor on Abel and his offering, but on Cain, his offering, he did not look with favor. There's always been a divide in the family between the brothers, the siblings, the children. This is what God was revealing concerning a certain matter. Now, again, this is biblical, but it's also current in the present. This is why I open with the fact that it's happening currently, now, right now, among different groups, different families. It's happening right now. But the thing is, people don't know their history, so they can't really understand what's happening and why it's happening. And we're going to get there in a minute. But this is what God has been showing me. I can show you better than I can tell you. So there's always been this innate divide that has existed. Now, God showed me there was a generational curse breaker that existed in a family, and it shook up some stuff. People weren't prepared for that, though. People weren't prepared for the dismantling of that system and how they have always operated with the division in place. So in the poem that I shared this poem, and God gave it to me, and it's called A Note to My Son. And you can go back and watch the blessed messages, and also when I publish, you can get the book. But in one of the verses that God gave me was the fact that they needed one to be on top and one to be on bottom, in the sense that they needed someone to flourish and be successful, fruitful, and grow, and they needed the other to struggle and suffer. That was the intent. But again, this was man-made creation. This wasn't natural. Remember, I said they were inserting conditions and making situations. I'm going to elaborate more on that, but I just want to keep that in mind. But historically, when we look at it, Cain, he worked the soil, so he was digging. That's laborious, okay? Abel kept the flocks. He was a shepherd, similar to Isaac. I got one more for y'all. Y'all never go on look at Bible study the same again, okay? This is going to make you want to read your Bible for yourself. Genesis 25:27. The boys grew up, and Esau became a skillful hunter, a man of the open country, while Jacob was content to stay at home among the tents. Jacob and Esau, same day. Jacob was the shepherd. He also was his mother's favorite. His mother's favored him. So he stayed home. He got to chill. He got to relax. Esau had, well, he was a hunter, so he had to go out again. The difference between fruitful, growing, elevation versus barrenness, killing, the ending of life versus the growth, a growth spurt. This is what, again, these are all generation after generation, so it's reoccurring, but it's nothing new. This is what God was showing me. It's nothing new. And again, because you didn't understand your history, Lady Nye, you were a little confused on what was going on. Not only that, so people who are traditionalists, who believe solely in the Old Testament practices, they stuck there. They stuck there. So they had to recreate these situations, or they felt as though they had to recreate these situations in someone's life. Can't make this stuff up. It aligns with the scripture. So because they are stuck on being witches and warlocks, they're stuck. They're stuck on idol worship, blood offerings, sacrifice. They're stuck there. That's what God was revealing. Because in their minds, this is how things have always been done. This is history. So we have to remake it. We have to continue it on. And again, some people are stuck there. They will only succumb to their own evil and wicked ways. They are lost causes, lost cases. This is why God has been telling me, out with the old and with the new. That's what he's been revealing. Because these people, you ever heard that expression, you can't teach an old dog new tricks? Now, that's not completely true. However, in these cases, God is showing me that they're not open to change. They're not open to feedback. They don't want to hear from God. Unfortunately. And that's what God needed to show me, that, hey, you're going to become irritated and annoyed because you are feeling as though people aren't listening. And let me tell you, I had this experience just the other day where I'm like, I don't know what the point of this is. I don't know the point. These people are sick. These people are not listening. And God was like, I have to show you, because the thing is, I'm giving you who needs to hear it, who is actually going to be impacted in a positive way. I'm going to give those people to you. You're going to reach the people who you need to reach. He had to remind me of that, because you're going to beat your head against the wall, keep trying to reach people who are lost causes. They are no good. And he's allowed them to create their own idols, even with fair warning. They are whoever they claim to be. They are gods in their own minds. And God told me, you need a clear head and a humble heart to do the work of God. Yeah, you need what does it say? A clear head and a humble heart. So you have to be receptive, essentially. You have to be open to receiving from the Lord. Something God continues to remind me. So these are not those people. Okay? The people that you might encounter, and it's a lie. That's the problem. It's a lie. They are not receptive to hearing from God. And the thing is, you have to understand that you can't force people to do what you want them to do. Just like God gave his disciples choice. Jesus gave his disciples choice. He said, hey, you can come with me. Come with me, follow me. I'm going to show you the way. But he left it open. He didn't put them in bondage. He didn't put them in chains. The gift of choice is something Satan doesn't offer. Satan is my way or the highway. This is what we do. This is how we go about our life. Okay, this is how we live. Okay? So, Jesus offered another option other than hell. But some people will continue to choose hell for themselves. These people can't even see that they are headed to hell, because in their mind, they don't understand the level of disrespect they have shown towards God. In their mind, they think this is beneficial, this is helpful. If I can recreate scenarios and put you in harm's way, if I kill all your family members, like, they think this is helpful in their delusional minds, but it's disrespectful to God, because God is the creator and the author of things. So if you decide I'm going to do what I want to do and create and stick my nose and stuff, then you're stepping on the toes of God. You're interfering with God's business. That's the thing. If you, again, what do you say? They think they are gods in their minds. They are their own gods. So by doing that, they are destined for hell. They only care about proving their own points. God also showed me that sometimes, or some people, they put you in these situations so they can say, I told you so, or you should have listened to me. So they want to have this upper hand. They want to feel as though they're right, essentially. They want to be right. Okay? Like they just have this need to be right. My way or the highway. That's how they feel about things in their heart. Therefore, they don't care whose toes they step on, including God's. They don't care who they affect, who they hurt in the process, as long as they get to prove their point. And this is demonic. It is very demonic to hope that someone fails so you can feel good about yourself. Somebody needs to hear that right now. Because someone was banking on the fact that someone would fall and bust their head and need their help. And just so they could feel good. But God, again, he's not allowing it to happen because he wants to also let them know they're not in control. And he kept me here so I could see it. And that's what God showed me ultimately. Because I was facing circumstances that, again, I didn't quite understand. I didn't understand the gravity of it. I didn't understand the history of it. And that's why God revealed some things to me. Because he said, yeah, this is the history. But reminder, they are attempting to recreate this history. But it didn't go the way they planned. It's not going the way they planned. So they're a little upset. They mad about that, actually. Because it worked on so many others. They've done this so many times. Yeah, that's what God was showing me. They've done it before. So they was like, hi, work on you. Yeah. So God, another thing that God showed me is that someone was placed in a situation where, and this is something from the past that God was showing me. They were placed in this situation where someone could have helped a long time ago. Someone could have intervened in their situation, but they chose not to. Again, to prove a point. I can't make this stuff up. And then when God was showing me, he was showing me, again, the divide. He was showing me the divide within the family. And then he was showing me how they wanted somebody to be lower so that they could ask them for support and help with certain things. So they had to rely on them. I think I mentioned that before. But it was deeper because, again, they were creating these scenarios so this person basically could never excel, never escape. And we're going to get there too. But they could have helped. And it was always within their means to do so. It was always within their means to intervene. Keep that in mind. So just imagine how can I put it? You have somebody, or you're in the same room, same space as somebody, and there's a platter on the table, platter of food, both of you are hungry, but you take the platter and you leave out the door. Okay? And the other person is stuck there with nothing. Just imagine that. So they had the means, because sometimes we're in, or amongst people where we need help ourselves, I can't help you if I can't help myself. But in these situations, these people had more than enough. They had a lot. Actually, they just sat back and hoped for your downfall. That's what God said. They had houses, they had cars, they had money, they had jobs and job opportunities. This is another scenario. So somebody out of work. And you so high and mighty, you got all these positions, you the CEO of the company, everybody and their mother. And this your so-called person, home girlfriend, and they don't have a job, and they looking for a job. And you ain't hired them, you ain't get on no contact, you ain't give them nothing. You ain't even spread that resume around. This is the type of people they are. You just waiting for them to fail and die. because they had the resources, they had the connections, they had the means and ability to help. This is what God was showing me. And we're still mourning the loss of Dolly Parton, amongst others. There's been quite a few people who have passed away this year. So again, every life is worth a rest in peace and all those things. But Dolly Parton stands out because again, she's been all over the media because of her contributions, her generosity. That's who she was to people. And it goes a lot deeper than what I first thought, because some of the things I'm learning, I'm like, wow, I didn't even know she was doing that. But again, she left a message: if you can do something, do it. Period. I'm a straightforward individual. I'm a direct person. I don't need you to tell me everything you're going through. If we in the same room and we both hungry, for me to say I'm gonna take the plate with me and leave. No, we're gonna share it. Period. But in this case, these people decided I'm gonna take the plate and leave. I can't make this stuff up. And you will be surprised. We're not. I want to be very clear, because sometimes I think that people take things surface level. I know they do. We're talking about people they making millions. Maybe they at least making six figures, at least six figures. Multiple cars. They have multiple. They have more than enough. They haven't extended nothing, and they watch this person struggle. So, do you think that this is what God would encourage? I'm asking a question. So, God told me this. I was headed down the same path, talking to myself about myself. He said, you were headed down that same path. This is why I had to pull you up. This is why I had to show you better than I can tell you. I would have been in the same situation, doing the same things, ignoring people, victim blaming, saying, oh, it's your fault, you shouldn't have gotten in that situation. I would have turned my nose up at people. I would have been arrogant and pompous. This is what God told me. God didn't want that for me. So I was placed in a particular situation to show me something. Yep, that's what God told me. I can't make this stuff up. And again, that's acknowledging my faults and taking accountability, because there was a time where I was headed down that path. I can see it now that I look back, where I would have just been like, oh, well, pull yourself up by your own bootstraps and keep it moving. Now, that's not to say that I feel that people should, do their best. Do their best, do what you can do. But I don't agree with actually being negative towards folk because they're in difficult situations. Yeah, I don't agree with that. I don't agree with just ignoring the fact, if you're a millionaire, I'm telling you, I really feel this. then you should share. I just think that should be within your heart. Again, Dolly Parton, with that Imagination Library, she shared. The books were shipped every month, no cost, to the families. And I told you, my daughter and I benefited from that. And that was just giving. I also was thinking about something I want to do in the future concerning a scholarship. I've had this idea for a few years now. And someone passed, and I wanted to start a scholarship foundation. But I was thinking more so, these scholarships that are offered, typically you have to go through a lot to attain them, right? Like the application process and all of these criteria you have to meet. I'm thinking more so along the lines of the needs that you have that aren't associated directly with educational piece, but with your living expenses. I know a lot of times college students struggle with that. Food, clothing, even things such as leisurely activities. We don't consider those helpful, but this is why a lot of people have mental health problems, okay? Because they don't do anything but work, okay? That's going to be in my next dissertation, my next thesis, whatever. But they don't do nothing else. And if that's all you're doing, that's a mental strain. That's a toll on you. But again, in the future, I think I've been considering how to make it accessible and available, but without all the red tape. We don't need red tape if people are trying to get their education, in place. But I just, again, I'm just thinking, if you can do something, do it. Like, and then even with those people who donate to institutions and colleges, and I have to be real clear or real here. A lot of times, some of the college students don't see that money. Okay, they don't actually benefit from it in terms of helping them expand their education. So I'm thinking of a way where they could actually have access to it, where it wouldn't be jumping through hoops. They wouldn't have to go through the financial aid office or FAFSA and all these other places. But that's to come. But God had to show me some things so I wouldn't go down the same path as others who have dropped the ball on helping their fellow man, on just being a good citizen. These are demonic people. So the situation I was placed in, God showed me something concerning this. Originally, it was an evil plan to destroy me. It was set up by Satan. But God was able to uno reverse it. You hear what I'm saying? He reversed that thing. So what the enemy meant for good, what the enemy meant for evil, let's be clear. What the enemy meant for evil, God used it for my good. So the situation was a plot against my life, okay? And I'm not the only one. Someone is plotting against your life. This is the warning, okay? And it looks good. It looks tempting. It looks very appetizing. However, this is an attempt against your life. But I know that God is going to use it for your good. He showed me a specific person where they don't know that they're entering a situation where it's for their downfall, but God is going to use it for their good. Just like he did with me. It showed me exactly what happened to some folks. So by me being placed in these circumstances, in this situation, I was able to see what someone else experienced. Again, that's where the empath came out. It was like a movie on repeat, a movie being played again. And this time I was in it. So I was like the co-star in the movie. Okay? And I needed to see it this way. And I needed to feel it before the next chapter of my life. This is important. So sometimes you go through things and the enemy wants to take you out. But God, again, he will scoop in there, reverse, uno reverse on y'all. So it also taught me what to do and what not to do. Okay? Again, I told you before, sometimes you learn from other people's mishaps. Yeah, their experiences. And you're like, oh, I don't want to do that. Okay? And then other times you'll look at them and say, okay, I'll take some, clues from you, some hints from you, all these things. But what God showed me is that somebody was placed in these situations they didn't want to be in. Sometimes we make assumptions about people. We judge people because we don't know the full story. God has shown me that you don't have to know the full story to love people. You don't have to know all their business just to be a good citizen. I'm going to use this for example. If somebody, let's just say they started to use illicit substances or illicit drugs, and you just assume, you turn your nose up at them and just like, oh, you just, those derogatory names we use towards people who use drugs or substances. And then later on you find out that, hey, how it started and how they had a terrible childhood and a terrible life and they were mistreated and abused. And then all of a sudden you have sympathy towards this person versus if you didn't know their story. You don't need to know the history to just be a good citizen. You don't need to know the whole story just to mind your own business. Like, this is the thing. People were inserting themselves in stuff that didn't have nothing to do with them. That's what God was showing me. So he said, put yourself in person's place in this movie. You be the star and see what happened. Exactly what happened. So again, I needed to see it and feel it before this next chapter of my life, because God is about to do some things in my life. He showed me that. And again, the persons, because it was multiple, that God was showing me had to do what they had to do to survive. Not because they necessarily wanted to do them. Okay? So again, he had to show me this first, because I didn't comprehend everything that happened. I understood from a limited perspective, as we all do, and I just say that. You know, we always see things from our vantage point, but not necessarily from the factual place that the person actually lived. You know, we don't really see things that they experience on their level. We just see things after the fact, or we make assumptions after the fact. And what God showed me is that people were manipulating their conditions from behind the scenes. This person wanted more for themselves, but they were hindered. They were hindered on purpose. People was putting stumbling blocks in front of them. Uh-huh. And that's the thing. And remember, I always say, if I told you, you wouldn't believe me. And that's the truth. So that's why God had to show me. He said, I can show you better than I can tell you. Because if he told me, I'd be like brushing it off. But if I actually had the emotional experiences where I'm actually going through it and I'm feeling what they felt, the shock, the loneliness, the depression, the sadness, all these things. Not stay stuck there, but just have a glimpse, because it's just a glimpse of what they went through and how people actually stood in their way. They stood in their way on purpose. Just imagine that. So if you've always been a person that got everything handed to you, okay, and again, we can look at the scriptures that were shared. There was always a difference between the brothers, okay? Jacob and Esau, Cain and Abel, Ishmael and Isaac. So imagine me, Ishmael, you kicked out, you got to fend for yourself, you got to figure things out. And Isaac, what do you say? Everything coming to him easily. His father left everything he had to him. That's what it says in scripture. Go read it. Everything came to him easy. So imagine being Ishmael, you got to dig your way up. Things are much harder. Imagine that. Imagine, I just sit with that. But it's one thing to think about it. It's another to go through it yourself, where every access entry point is closed to you, and you have to figure things out. You don't have your daddy wealth. No. Nope. You don't have land. See, Isaac could move wherever. He had land, you know. He ain't had to hunt. He had servants. He had people who worked under him. So just imagine. God revealed that someone is stuck in a family right now that does not know the Lord. He gave me this message, and I alluded to it in a message not that long ago, where someone is stuck. Actually, I did a prayer for back to school. That's what it was. I was at one of those back to school events. And while I was there, God was showing me that someone is stuck in a family that does not believe in the Lord. Yup. Right at the event. So that, again, typically if I'm in a place, that means someone in that vicinity. Yup. But it's not limited to that particular individual. But God said, say the word, Lady Nah. They don't have any concept of Jesus Christ because they've been trapped with this family. But the family is evil. Their family is evil. But God is telling me, He's about to provide a pathway for them to identify Jesus for themselves. Yeah, their family is evil. They practice the former, the old, the sacrifices, the idol worship, all these witchcraft, magic spells. That's what they practice around this person. And for some reason, they were given an outlet. Yeah, an outlet. God is going to give them an outlet. So a memory came to mind. Speaking of a door, God showed me a door. There was a door that required a key to exit. Okay. Now, there was a message, and I cannot remember, given a long time ago, concerning the fact that, actually I was watching a show, but I had a real life experience, okay? At a relative's house, you needed a key to exit the door. So someone had to retrieve the key to grant access to leave. This was the thing. This is for someone right now. This is what they said. This is what God is showing me. Someone has been cornered at the door, at the back door. Yeah, someone does not, they have been blocking their exit. That's what God is saying. More specifically, they have been blocked by the offspring of a witch. Remember, and this is why it's connected, because God is saying that someone is stuck in a family where they practice witchcraft and the exit is being blocked. Now, speaking of Dolly Parton, God told me this. He reminded me of the song I Will Always Love You, and I spoke on it. The fact that Dolly Parton wrote it, performed it, it's featured on her album, and yet she was gifted it to Whitney Houston. Some kind of way they made arrangements where, you know, she received royalties from Whitney singing it. But originally, because remember, God was showing me that some things have been repurposed. Some things are being repurposed. Where is that? I had a little thing about the song. So it says, she wrote I Will Always Love You, March 1974, as a single from her album Jolene. That's a long time ago. So she wrote the track as a farewell to her former business partner and mentor, Peter Wagner. She wanted to move on to a solo career and use the song to express her gratitude and sadness over leaving his show. Okay? This is important because we often think of that song as a love ballad. That's what we think of it. But it's funny because if you watch the movie The Bodyguard, that also shows like a disconnect from her security guard, the security officer, which was, they had a business relationship which kind of turned into a romantic relationship. But either way, they were departing. So this song reveals some type of connection, some type of bond that someone is unwilling to let go of. Okay? I wanted to share a few I guess lines from the song. It says, well, y'all should know this song. I know y'all know this. If I should stay, well, I will only be in your way, and so I'll go, and yet I know I'll think of you each step of the way, and I will always love you. Bittersweet memories, that's all I'm taking with me. Goodbye, please don't cry, because we both know that I'm not what you need, okay? And it said, but I will always love you. And I hope life will treat you kind. And I hope that you have all that you ever dreamed of. Oh, I do wish you joy. And I wish you happiness. But above all this, I wish you love. I love you. I will always love you. Okay? So this is important. This is significant because somebody has been held hostage. Oh, it's coming back to what I mentioned before in a previous message where someone was holding someone hostage. Particularly, God showed me a merge that they wasn't trying to release this person from this romantic bond. It could be a business relationship. It could be a lot of different situations. But what God showed me concerning this was a family. It's holding somebody in a demonic covenant. Okay? A demonic religion. Something that is not of God. And the person wants out. Okay? Yeah, they want out. Yeah. Another thing that God showed me was how they attempt to destroy someone, essentially, is they sick the kids on you like dogs. That's what he told me. They sick the kids on you. So they use their kids against you to hurt you, essentially. And, okay, why is this a problem, Lady Nah? Sometimes I'll be thinking to myself, like, why isn't this common sense that is not a good practice? Why is it not a good practice to sick the kids on people? Because number one, you're teaching them demonic practices. You're teaching them to go against God. You're teaching them to be witches and warlocks. When God already said death, he proclaimed, suffer not a witch to live. So you're putting your child in a place where they're going to hell, where they're going to die. That's what it said. And when we talk about death, we know we talk about spiritually. Like they will never experience heaven. You're not even giving them an opportunity when you're teaching them these practices, knowing full well that if you teach them while they're young, eventually they're going to become adults and they're going to be responsible for their own actions at that point. But this is what God has been showing me. So when you sick a dog on someone, it means to order, meaning you're the executive, you're the boss, you're the master at this point. It's telling them what to do. And, this reminds me of the whole RICO law we talked about. Somebody at the top is ordering these people to do these things. So it says to order or encourage an animal, usually a dog, to chase or attack a person or target. That's what it means to sick. SIC. So this is one of their major tactics. This is what their major tactic has been, to use the children. Why? Because children are innocent. And often if they use the children, guess what happens? If they're sicking the kids on an adult and the adult strikes back, who's going to be held accountable? Who's going to be held at fault? The adults. Because the adult should have control of their emotions. But no one is going to consider the fact that these children are being ordered to abuse this adult. And it could be bullying. Because we don't think about kids bullying adults. How is that possible? Oh, it's ways. Again, God said, I can show you better than I can tell you. And he showed me. I'm telling you what they did to this individual who was already vulnerable, who was just trying to make a way for their family, was trying to do their best, serve the best they could. And they did it. What God revealed to me is that, again, sometimes when you encounter somebody in old age and they come off mean-spirited, or they not the most pleasant, you assume things about them, but you don't actually know the history and how they got to this place. So God was showing me, like, this is how they got there. This is what they was doing. Again, these children were ordered by adults to attack this person, to do all these harmful things, to mentally mess with them, essentially. And it was reminding me of the movie Children of the Corn. Y'all remember that? Actually, I'm going to go back and watch it. But it reminded me of that, where I actually, researcher, because I always do my research before I come on here, and I had a refresher about the fact that there was a couple who stopped because there was a body in the road. And essentially, these children were demonic. They practiced demonic worship and all these things, and they wanted to sacrifice these adults. That's essentially what happened in the movie. But I'll probably watch it just to refresh. I don't like horror movies. I don't like scary movies. No more. Okay? I'm too spiritually awake where, things happen. But it's just a lot. I told you it was a long message. We still in it. I'm going to keep going until it's complete, until God tells me to stop. But it's just so, again, I told you some of these messages have been really difficult sometimes. Like this one in particular, because I was able to visually see what was taking place and how harmful it was. And because I didn't understand, I wasn't necessarily the person to intervene, but I wouldn't have been able to intervene because I didn't understand. And this is why God wants me to serve as a messenger, so that people can watch out and see the tactics of Satan, so you can know what happens. So when someone comes to you and say this is taking place, and you think, oh, they just cuckoo, they crazy. No, you really have to consider that there's a spiritual realm, and this is the operation of Satan. They're wicked, but again, they were sicking the kids on them like dogs. Go hit them. Go say nasty, mean stuff to them. Be loud in their presence. Be disrespectful. Say all these curse words around them. All types of stuff. And anyone who works in the school system. Anyway. Also, another thing is that in this particular community or this family, it appeared that they gave up their birthright. But their birthright, just like, Jacob and Esau, but they were tricked out of it. So Jacob tricked Esau, but they made it appear as if the person walked away from it. That's what God showed me. Yep. They made it appear as if the person's, volunteered and said, I don't want it, I'm going to give up. More specifically, this person inherited a house from their father, but they were made to feel inadequate by the other family members. They were told that it was too much for them to handle, although they needed it the most. They had the least and the most to lose. That was it. Yeah, so without this inheritance, they were pretty much left to hang in a dry, okay? In terms of like just facing difficulties with maintaining housing and just a whole bunch of financial burdens that they were never meant to experience, because this was supposed to be their foundation. This was something to make them stable and keep them basically at least stable, that's the word, to keep them in a great place where they would never have to face homelessness. But without it, they were left destitute, meaning they ended up being in a position where they couldn't maintain, and they were scammed. Those family members knew exactly what they were doing. That's what God told me. They knew the benefits of home ownership. Again, we talk about the separation and the divide in the family. So if somebody is book smart versus someone just being skilled and laborious, they each have benefits. They each bring something to the table, but just in different capacities. However, they banked on the person's inability to comprehend certain things. So they were able to give some flowery language, so it would seem as though they were making a good decision, instead of being real with them, being truthful and honest, and explaining that if you give this up, it's gonna be really hard. With this, you're gonna be good. You're gonna be set. You're not gonna have to worry about much. All you're gonna be responsible for is property taxes in the year. Per year or something like that. They didn't explain it in detail where it would be attractive for this person, so they gave it up. They gave up their right. Same way what Jacob and Esau did. Jacob did Esau. He tricked them. How dare? I don't understand. And these people just went on. Had no conscience. They living large, partying. This person's struggling. And the thing is, all right, let me put it in perspective. The person that God showed me is that this was their heads up in life. This was their opportunity to get their legs up. Okay, your leg up in life, that little lift, that extra boost. That's what they needed. The other person, they could have did it on their own because they already had themselves established. They had what they needed. This person, this was it. And they robbed them of it. And ever since, they've been struggling while everyone else is flourishing. That's what God showed me, because they were scammed. And again, certain people, they know you get a home, you got equity, you got all kinds of benefits from owning your own home. Now, if, for instance, I'm going to say this, if you don't have good credit and somebody gives you a house, what you going to do? Take the house, because it's going to be harder to do it on your own. They didn't explain this. They made it seem as if it was a burden, but it actually was, hey, this is a good opportunity for you. They robbed them. And now, the person who robbed them, they're able to make decisions based on the notion that they will likely never be homeless. Once you own a home that's fully paid off, the likelihood of you being homeless is slim. Okay? It's very slim. Okay, so they secured their future, but they left this other person destitute. Now, fast forward to the present, because God was showing me this is what happened. Because again, he's like, lady, now I got to show you better than I can tell you. So this is the history. Now, fast forward. They inserted similar scenarios from the past into someone's life, a pattern of events. Someone was aware of the family history and tried to alert someone before it happened. But the insight they offered required spiritual awareness. So what God showed me is that someone was trying to tell somebody, basically, this is what happened. Okay? So they were trying to alert this person. At the time, the person was not where they needed to be to receive the information. They kept the information, but they didn't understand the extent of it. They didn't understand the importance of it. okay, until much later. So the person who now understands and has awakened, and now God has showed them everything that it needed to see, is trying to tell other people about what happened. But again, they don't believe either. So just like this person was asleep and didn't really comprehend, the people that they're trying to tell now, they don't comprehend it either. Because again, what I say initially, when you're entering a family and it starts with generations, your introduction to the family is where the people are now. You're not introduced to the history. So it's hard for you to see these people in a different light. It's hard for you to understand things from a different place, because you're like, that's, that's what, Joe and I don't have no problem with them, but you don't know the history. And not so that you can have a problem with them, but so you can understand the type of people you're dealing with. Because remember, God told me, he said, if you really knew the people you were surrounded with, you probably would be a little more cautious. Like if you really, really knew. Thus, again, the title, I can show you better than I can tell you. And what God showed me, again, this is not isolated to one particular situation. This is why I also said team. God gave me that word team. Not just a family, it could be an organization, it could be an institution, but it's other places. They do it all the time. They do it to the black sheep. People they cannot silence or tell what to do. This is important. So the people who stick out, these stick out like a sore thumb and don't look like everybody else, don't follow the rules like everyone else, that's who they target. People who are unique or different. They want to control them. They see unique attributes as blemishes. That's the thing. So remember, this is getting good. So remember when Jacob, he was a scammer his whole life, wasn't he? When Jacob went to leave, he went to leave and take his family with him. What did he do? He picked out the blemished sheep because he knew that Laban wouldn't want them. But he had already tricked them because they were also the stronger ones. But judgmental folk, they judge you off of appearance, so they don't get to know your strengths. They don't get to know who you really are to God. Okay, they don't know you're a spiritual assassin until they assassinate it. You hear what I'm saying? Until it start to affect them. So they don't really see you as an asset. They see you as a liability until the time come, and then they wondering why everything is falling apart in their life because they messed with the wrong one. But they try to push you out. They try to convince you to leave. And you have to agree to it, and that's how it works. So the thing is, this is the thing. Oh, it's so deep. They try to create impossible situations to make it difficult for you to overcome. That's what God showed me. So the rule is they can't touch you. They try to scare you out of your life and out of your mind. So they try to make you go crazy. I told you, make you lose your faculties and lose your ability to think and all these things. They do what they do, sick the kids on you. That's one avenue. They do a lot of different things. But for this particular message, he said, he showed me children of the corn. They even try to turn your own children against you. That's a big one. They try to manipulate your children into thinking that they're doing the right thing. They're acting. They tell them all types of things. Oh, we just doing a play, or be difficult with your mom. That's what they do. But once you're aware, it doesn't affect you. And that's why God showed me to open this up with that particular statement. Because once you're aware of what's going on, it's like, I can see through you. But again, they use all these scare tactics and they call it a test, like the devil tested Job. They place obstacles, but don't tell you that it's all an illusion. And that's the thing. It's not even real. It's an illusion to play off of your emotions and your senses. You see how these messages are full circle? Because God was showing me, again, in bits and pieces, in segments. Because if he showed me everything at once, I would miss some of the information. I would miss the points. Okay? And I wouldn't be able to actually dissect it the way I have been able to understand. So if it's all an illusion, but they get you to believe in it, they get you to start to question your own sanity because of it, then they got you. Yeah, they got you. The conditions are not real though. They create all these it's like an obstacle course for your brain. It's all these tricks and things to make you think things are so bad or things are too hard. But you have to Know that nothing is too hard for God. So the counter to all of this is your faith in God. But a lot of times people fall victim because they don't have faith in God. And this is what God showed me. He said, I can show you, but I can tell you. They don't have faith in God. This is why they can't withstand things. They can't go through it. They can't make it. Okay? They can't make it out mentally strong because they don't have God. That's the one leg up that you had. Lady died, okay? That boost, it wasn't a house. It wasn't an inheritance. It was God. It wasn't financial. It wasn't even carnal in nature. It was God. That was it. But most people don't have that. So they'll fall victim to it. And they won't be able to understand why. They make it appear real so you can buy into it. And that's another thing. They try to convince you that you are someone else. This is your destiny. This is what's meant for you. You caused it. They try to blame you. They try to make it your fault. Turn you into the person who caused the problem. They do all kinds of things to convince you to buy into this illusion. If you stop believing in it, then it no longer exists. If you say, the Lord is my shepherd and I shall not want, you've destroyed the illusion. No weapon formed against me shall prosper. You destroyed the illusion. Because you already declared no weapon going to prosper over your life. The power of prayer is somebody, but people don't have it. They don't have the faith enough to withstand the test of time. That's what God was showing me. Yeah, but if you declare in the name of the Lord Jesus, try to tell you. So once you start recognizing the patterns and seeing the truth, it doesn't affect you in the way they desire. They can't scare you. They can't control your emotions. They can't manipulate your thoughts. So another thing that was revealed. Remember, I mentioned that there was a person who was trying to alert someone to what was going on. Okay. And unfortunately, this person didn't make it. Okay. It probably was just their time, you know. But once they left the situation, other people no longer had to play nice anymore. So, you know, in certain families, there are people who they call the glue that keeps people together. Usually it's like the mother figure, the grandmother, somebody who is like the patriarch or the matriarch of the family who kind of holds it together and keeps things flowing. But once this person died off, it was like nobody had to play nice anymore. And what does that mean? That means that their mask started slipping. So the things that the person had warned you of or told you about, you started to see for yourself. Okay? Because they were no longer faking a funk. You ever heard that word? That expression. Where they're just like, you know how people come around nice, but they're internally they're evil. We talked about Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, that kind of thing. So the illusion kind of like died out anyway. It kind of died with this person. Let's just say that. Because they were no longer, for some odd reason, they felt the need to play nice. And the reason why is because they benefited from this person. That's what God revealed. They benefited from them, so they didn't want to create any kind of unnecessary tension. They wanted things to appear a certain way on the surface, even though deep down things weren't that way. That's what God was showing me. They thought the truth also died with that person, but it didn't. Because again, they alerted you. And it's so funny because, not funny, but it's interesting that they alerted a certain person with spiritual gifts. This was important. This is key. It's not because you can tell people stuff, but it was only the fact that they alerted this certain person who was later, much later, able to piece things together based on that insight. And that was the important part. So the truth didn't die. The truth was the revelations, the truth like about this particular situation, these particular people. And it was kind of like when David warned Solomon before his death. It was very similar. When David was saying, hey, watch out for them. They cool, but they not. Like, that's what David told Solomon. So it was kind of that situation. And again, it didn't make sense until much later. Another thing, because this person was out of the picture, people started trying to make this person seem like they was the problem. They try to make them seem like they was the issue. They used them as a scapegoat. Uh-huh. And they also was trying to make this person seem as if they were the persons. Remember I said somebody had the means to help, but they didn't. So they tried to say that it was this particular person who didn't help, but that wasn't true. But some kind of way, they tried to invent this scenario as if they didn't help when they could. But the truth is that they were helping, and people were using them. They helped a lot. And sometimes they gave everything that they had, and yet they were painted as a bad guy or a villain in the story, because these people needed a scapegoat to cover up their corruption and their ill deeds. They knew the type of people they were. They knew, and they used this as an opportunity to place all of their bad deeds on someone else. And God is showing me that it's happening right now. Like, this is not a one-time thing. People are doing it now. They're waiting for somebody to paint it on or pin the crime on. They waiting. And you know, the easiest person to pin the crime on is someone who's no longer alive here to testify for themselves, okay? Somebody who can't defend themselves. That's who they usually try to pin the crime on. So be careful about listening to stories and believing everything someone says. Especially when they didn't face the person while they was alive. Be careful about that. Okay? I mean, look, because if anybody say I did anything, I'm right here. Okay? But in all jokes aside, that's what they did. They are opportunists. That was another word that God gave me. They use any opportunity to benefit themselves in any way, even if it's not admitting fault. Okay, if they can pin it on someone else, they're gonna do it. This is the type of people you're dealing with. Also, someone took revenge on someone. They wanted revenge. This is the thing. They wanted revenge, but they took it out on the scapegoat. The scapegoat, again, was just that, a scapegoat. But because the scapegoat was related to the situation, they felt like, well, I want to take it out on them. Okay? And God is saying history is repeating itself in other people. The signs are there. And I'm aware of a developing situation where someone wants revenge and they are attempting to take it out on someone. But God is saying, just be mindful that he's aware and he's watching. And no weapon formed against this particular individual is going to prosper. That's what God told me. Because they use the same tactics. They try to turn this person against people and people against this person and all these things. And they're building up their case. However, God is aware. And it's not advantageous to it's not advantageous to pursue that matter any longer. I'm going to put it that way. Okay? The signs are there. They have always been there. And sometimes you have to look again. Okay? And that's what God was showing me today. Oh, Lord, it's been a lot to digest and to take in. When I receive the visual confirmations, sometimes you have to look again. I can't say that enough. Where are you going to look? It's in the arts. That's what God is saying. It's in the music. It's in the movies. It's in the artwork. Important. This is really important, because sometimes we look at things and we look at it at surface level, and then you look again and you're like, I see something different. Just like it's in the scripture. Number one place you should look. In the Bible. It's right there before your eyes. But then sometimes you have to read and then go back and read again. Yeah, that's what God told me. So we talked about empathy. Is as an empath, you are very emotional sometimes when it comes to certain things. Sometimes you receive heartbreaking awakening, hurtful discoveries. And I guess I could say this, don't let that be you. Don't find yourself in a place where you're turning your back on people. You're doing things out of selfish ambition. This is definitely something that someone needs to hear, because remember, they tried to hurt you, okay? And the person who saved you and covered you in prayer, okay, went through a whole bunch to secure your future and to ensure that you're able to have all the things that you have today. This is really important for someone right now, because they are in a state where they're not spiritually mature enough to understand. Again, it's this new generation where they don't understand the dynamics of the family, or the relatives, the organization, the institution, team. They don't understand the dynamics. So when they're entering in, they're accepting people based on what they know, and that's nothing wrong with that. But I would say, just because you know these people don't mean you should turn away from the people who were day ones, who were actually there, okay, and protecting you, spiritually protecting you, because these people, some people wanted someone's head on a platter. Okay, that's what God showed me. They wanted your head on a platter because, again, they are vengeful. They are vindictive. They didn't care that you weren't at fault or you weren't the culprit. But because you're associated, they wanted you. And that's unfortunate, but that's something that someone needs to be aware of, that they will take what they can get. That's the type of people you're dealing with. They're demonic. They can't get to you one person, they gonna take you. That's that type of mentality. So this is cautionary. But also just know that God is aware. For the most part, the individual that they thought they was going to target is protected. That's the thing. Okay, so in conclusion, what a message. I think this is one of the longest messages I've ever done. And again, I would say that I know it can be lengthy, but pause it, come back, take a little tea break, eat some biscuits or something, watch it a little bit more, pause it, come back. I would say watch it to the end. And if you're here, obviously you made it to the end, so congratulations. But if you skipped any parts, go back, okay, and watch the rest. But with that being said, what we gonna do? We gonna sit pretty and walk heavy. I'll talk to you real soon. Take care.